Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening: a 3-rate GST structure and exemption of health and life insurance premiums make it to the agenda of the group of ministers on GST rate rationalization. No decisions taken so far. The modalities emerging, the 12 and 18% slabs discussed, but more details sought. The union government sticks to the budget estimates, will borrow 6.61 lakh crore rupees in the second half of this financial year. This accounts for more than 47% of the annual borrowing plan. A late surge helps Indian equities close in the green for the 6th day in a row. The Nifty and the sensex ending at record closing highs. The Nifty already outpaced the 20% gains it made in 2023. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu rules out an American and French proposal for a 21-day ceasefire with Hezbollah, instructs Israeli forces to continue operations with full force. The Israeli army says it's launched strikes on Beirut. Tata Electronics and Taiwan's power chip semiconductor manufacturing corporation sign an agreement for technology transfer to build India's first fabrication plant in Gujarat. With a total investment outlay of 91,000 crore rupees, the fab is projected to manufacture 50,000 wafers a month. Global IT major Accenture beats estimates for the fourth quarter, raises revenue guidance between 3 to 6% for the full financial year, announces a $4 billion stock buyback. Malaysia's IHH Healthcare looks to increase its stake in Fortis Healthcare. The group CEO Prem Kumar Nair hints at hiking the open offer price. Adds he hopes the court proceedings will wrap up in under a year as most issues have been resolved. That's an exclusive. Alchem Labs is in talks to acquire Novartis India from its Swiss parent. Sources say non-binding bids have been submitted and both companies are engaged in advanced negotiations. The deal is likely to be around 2,000 crore rupees. That's another exclusive. After spending 15 months in jail, the Supreme Court grants bail to former Tamil Nadu Minister Senthil Balaji. The court rules the Prevention of Money Laundering Act cannot become a tool in the hands of the Enforcement Directorate to incarcerate an accused for a long time without a trial. The Supreme Court reserves judgment on petitions filed by BYJU'S US-based lenders challenging the resolution professionals' decision to keep them out of the lenders' meet. Directs that no further lenders' meet should be held till the judgment is pronounced. Amazon's chief technology officer Werner Vogel says the company will not be baited into entering what he calls the race over generative AI. Calls large language models like ChatGPT inefficient, bats for more targeted AI spending. That's an exclusive. As always, let's start with the market action. The bulls did continue to maintain the winning momentum today as Dalal Street enters deep into uncharted territory. The Sensex and the Nifty hitting record highs in intraday trade. In fact, the Sensex gained about 650 points. The Nifty added about 200. Mid-cap underperformed today, closing just about flat, and the Nifty Bank was up by over 200 points as well. In fact, the Nifty has gained more than 20% so far this year, which is higher than the annual gains clocked in 2023. And all sectoral indices today closing in the green. That was the market action. On to the macros now. The government has released its borrowing roadmap for the second half of the fiscal year, and it plans to borrow 6.61 lakh crore rupees, which is in line with the budget target. Sapna joins us now to take us through the government's borrowing plan. Sapna.
Absolutely in line with the budget estimates for FY25, around 14 lakh odd crore is the big number. Now around 53% is what government had borrowed in H1. There was some tweaking in the overall gross borrowing number in the budget on July 23rd. Post that, H2 calendar now stands at around 6.61 lakh crore, which is around 47.2%, of the plan basically. So overall around 100 odd percent. So absolutely in line with the budget estimates. The second element here, of course, is also the fact that the government is also lowered its T-bill calendar in terms of the issuances. So that again, that moderation has basically come in because of the good cash flows, estimated cash flows of the government, and plus the current holding level of T-bills is quite sufficient at the moment. The third element, of course, we also need to keep in mind in terms of the sovereign green bonds. So, in H1, if you can recall, around 10,000 odd crores worth of auctions were cancelled because of poor yield quotes that the government had received. So around 12,000 odd crores was estimated at that point in time, out of which 10,000 odd crores was cancelled. Now the government probably has tried to weave that back in the H2 calendar. So out of this 6.61 lakh odd crore, 20,000 odd crores will be in terms of the dated securities for sovereign green bonds. This is a macro picture. Now, the DA Secretary has explained these numbers. We started asking why. The question that we asked was that why is it that we are on schedule, or rather within the budget estimate? So here the government is very clear. They are saying that the government needs to follow the prudential limits of the annual debt repayments. At some point in time, they might be encountering a spike in terms of the overall gross market borrowings because the redemptions are going to be higher. And why will the redemptions be higher? Say, for example, next year, around 5 lakh odd crore worth of only redemptions are being probably estimated, because during the COVID years, the government had borrowed heavily. So basically, to smoothen out that borrowing curve and to make sure that the future liability, doesn't become too heavy, because in the current year you're borrowing more, or you are doing some tweaks which are not really required, or the annual debt limits do not permit that. That's why they are within the budget numbers. And plus also, yes, let's keep in mind that the cash position so far is quite all right, and that's what is estimated in the times to come. Last but not the least, some of the government officials have also indicated, try to give some clarity on the issue of the sovereign gold bonds. So here they are indicating that basically, as per assessment, government will decide if they need to borrow or not under any further or future tranche of sovereign gold bonds. That's it. That's what they are indicating on the gold bonds. So neither are shut, neither are open. Basically, it's case neutral. Call will be taken in case they need to borrow under that as well.
Okay, well, it looks like it might not be open as an option, at least at this point in time. Sapna, many thanks for joining us. Now, the Finance Ministry, in its monthly economic review for August, has maintained that the outlook for the inflation trajectory remains positive. This on the back of a good monsoon and healthy sowing progress of the Kharif crop. The ministry said that private investment cycle is strengthening, with overall investment growing 7% in the April-June quarter. However, it said that urban consumption is showing signs of weakness. Now, cash-strapped airline SpiceJet has cleared pending salaries of employees for the last 3 months. Sources say that salary disbursals of around 80 crore rupees were pending since June. This comes after the airline raised 3,000 crore rupees through a qualified institutional placement. The company CEO Ajay Singh told CNBC-TV18 that the funds raised will be sufficient to support the airline's revival plans. Dublin-based IT services major Accenture posted a strong performance in the fourth quarter. Revenue ahead of estimates, growing 3% in dollar terms, while new bookings up 21% year-on-year. The company has raised the annual revenue growth forecast to 3.6% for 2025. However, this is slightly lower than Wall Street's estimates. Reliance Jio Infocom's chairman Akash Ambani has joined the board of Viacom18 ahead of its merger with Walt Disney Star India. Bodhi Tree Systems co-founder James Murdoch and Qatar Investment Authority's tech, media and telecom head Mohammad Ahmed Al Hardan have also joined the board along with 2 others. Now, the reconstitution of the board is a key step in integrating these 2 media companies. Neeta Ambani, who is expected to take on the role of the chairperson of the merged entity, has also been officially inducted into the Viacom18 board. Reliance has inaugurated the 500 Jio BP Pulse EV charging station as part of the fuels and mobility joint venture between the companies. Now, the new EV charging station was installed at the Jio World Centre in Mumbai's Bandakurla complex. This also marks the installation of the 5,000th Jio BP Pulse charging point across India. On to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. No recommendation has been finalized during a meeting of the group of ministers on GST rate rationalization. Sources have said the group discussed proposals to merge the 12% and 18% tax slabs, but have asked officers for more details on the possible revenue impact on states. Timsy standing by now to take us through the details. Timsy, what are your sources telling you about the GOM's decisions or recommendations on whether or not 12% and 18% slabs can be merged?
Well, that's right. What we are given to understand from sources that the group of ministers panel on GST's rate rationalization has discussed the proposal to move to a 3-rate structure. No decision has been finalized as yet. This group has discussed the proposal to merge 12% and 18% slabs, and they've sought detailed revenue analysis on the impact of moving to a 3-rate structure. Rather, group of ministers is conscious of protecting the revenue interest of states, and thus, to be precise, opposition-ruled states such as Kerala, Karnataka, West Bengal are currently not in favor of merging the slabs. They rather say that the detailed revenue analysis on this proposal needs to be there in front of the group of ministers for any decision. And to be precise, on food items, the group of ministers in favor of moving the commonly used food items to a one common slab of 5%. Apart from that, group of ministers is keen on GST rate overall framework, where they say that all the current framework of goods and services needs an overhaul, but any changes can come only if the burden on consumers is not enhanced. Rather, they say that they are in favor of hiking rates on goods and services which are rarely used by common man, and they are in favor of hiking rates on goods and services that are of luxury in nature or pose any health hazards. Group of ministers is also in favor of exempting GST on health insurance and life insurance premium, and this move could cost government about 3,500 crore rupees. So group of minister has now tasked officers to study how to make up this revenue loss of 3,500 crore rupees. The group of ministers is now all set to meet on 19th and 20th of October in Delhi. On 19th, the agenda will be to discuss how to exempt GST on life insurance and health insurance, and on 20th on the other issues of further rates and slabs. Let's see what happens when they meet next.
It's going to take longer. It's not going to be an easy task for the GOM because revenue considerations are always in the back of the mind. From the tax administration's point of view, I can assure you they'll be delighted if the number of rates are reduced. It's going to be a call which is entirely political. The tax administration will be delighted, as I mentioned. And the reason why I say it is challenging, take for instance your 12 and 18, where are you going to put the rates at 15? Which means you're going to have a lot of upward movement as much as downward movement.
Well, we'll keep you updated on the next round of meetings of the GOM on rate rationalization. Now, SEBI Chief Madhvi Puri Butt spoke at an event organized by the Association of Mutual Funds in India. The SEBI Chief said that markets are complex and any arrogant regulator, those are her words, is doomed to fail. She also referred to the allegations of conflict of interest made by the Congress party against her. Listen in to what she had to say.
The markets are today so complex that any regulator who is arrogant enough to believe that they know and understand every nuance and can actually make sensible regulations in isolation, are doomed to failure. So co-creation is not us being generous. It is about just being sensible and knowing that in today's world of complexity, unless you co-create, you're going to land up with terrible regulations. So hopefully we have a good set of regulations. I'm sometimes asked, why is it that, I talk about mutual funds so much, because these days they say I talk about REITs too much. And I need to worry, kal ko, arey, wo to ICICI bank बैठा था, ICICI mutual fund बैठा था, she was promoting mutual funds, बड़ा conflict होता है, right?
Well, that's the SEBI chief. Now, Israel has claimed to have struck Hezbollah positions in Lebanon's Beirut hours after Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected proposals of a ceasefire with the Iran-backed militant group. Instead, he instructed defense forces to continue fighting with full force. The US and France have been pushing for a 21-day ceasefire deal between Tel Aviv and Hezbollah. According to Lebanese officials, over 620 people have died due to Israeli bombing since the start of the week. Israel's military chief has reportedly told troops that the strikes could pave the way for a possible ground incursion into Lebanon.
I can't go into detail about everything we do, but I can tell you one thing. We are determined to return our residents in the north safely to their homes. We are inflicting blows on Hezbollah that they did not imagine. We do it with power, we do it with guile. I promise you one thing, we will not rest until they come home.
Hezbollah decides for itself, and it is completely able to defend itself and to defend Lebanon and Lebanese people. Hezbollah has done nothing to violate the resolution. The resolution prevents any manifestation of military presence which has not happened by Israel.
So in terms of a ground incursion or ground invasion, that's really for the Israelis to speak to. We certainly don't want to see any action taken that could lead to further escalation in the region. We still believe that there is time and space for diplomacy. We want to see a diplomatic resolution and a solution to prevent an all-out war. But in terms of, the Israeli operations, I'd have to refer you to them to speak to that.
Tata Electronics has signed a deal with Taiwan's power chip semiconductor manufacturing corporation to set up India's first chip manufacturing plant in Gujarat. PCMC will provide design and construction expertise for the greenfield fab. It will also provide engineering support for the transfer of technologies. The facility will have a production capacity of up to 50,000 wafers a month. Shilpa Ranipeta spoke with Tata Sons chairman N. Chandrasekharan and PCMC's Frank, Huang on their partnership.
See, the semiconductor is going to be fundamental for the future because everything is going to be technology driven, data driven. We talk about AI driven, and we will talk about more new terms as we go into the future. But fundamentally, semiconductors power everything.
What's the kind of employment this is expected to generate, sir, and how are you dealing with the technological know-how and the skilling that is required for something that is very complex like this?
So we are building the whole training around the semiconductor ecosystem. Already we have close to 50,000 people working in our manufacturing, and this number will grow 4 to 5 times in the next 2 to 3 years. After that, for something like a fab, we need very specialized talent. We have already recruited a lot of people with huge experience internationally, all with 25, 30 years experience. We have assembled a very large team. Now we will be training a lot of engineers. Our first set of engineers are going to Taiwan to work in the PSMC facilities. And so it will require talent at multiple levels, and we are investing on that talent.
When we talk about this, and we have supposed several technology nodes, which I think suitable demand of Indian chip in the next few years, and we both agree. And the first step, and the most important is the choosing partner. I choose the Tata. I think I'm more confident, especially supported by the Indian government.
The Supreme Court has reserved its judgment on petitions filed by BYJU'S US-based lenders challenging the resolution professionals' decision to keep them out of the lenders' meeting. The Apex Court has directed that no further lenders' meet should be held till the Supreme Court pronounces its judgment. Remember, the US creditors had lent over $1 billion to BYJU'S US subsidiary. They've also challenged the resolution professionals' decision to accept the EdTech company's settlement with BCCI. Policy Bazaar's parent company PB Fintech could start its own chain of hospitals. This as per sources who say that the insurance aggregator is looking to enter the healthcare space. The company clarified that although aligning the interests of insurers and hospitals will help the consumer, it is continuing to assess its options. However, the news has weighed on stocks as investors expect the move to push capital expenditure higher in the short term, but finally coming off its intraday low, closing about 2% lower. Malaysia-based global major IHH Healthcare, the largest stakeholder in Fortis Healthcare, plans to increase its shareholding. In a conversation with Ekta Batra, the group CEO Prem Kumar Nair has hinted at sweetening the open offer price. He also said that most issues with the open offer have been resolved. Hopes for court proceedings to wrap up in the next year. Take a look.
I would say a lot of the issues have been resolved, right? And this is probably the last final matter, the forensic by Delhi High Court, which is ongoing now. All right, I won't comment on it, right, because it is going through the courts at the moment, and we anticipate that once it is resolved, we let the court process, go through its, usual route. We will, and then we'll have to decide what to do next. The open offer was at $170. Fortis today is at 600 plus, right? So we will have to make a decision on how we move forward. There are many ways in which we can increase our stake, as you know, right? But one thing's for sure, we will be staying in India and we will be staying with Fortis.
So there's no chance of selling out that 31% stake?
Absolutely not, all right? We have got Fortis, we've got Gleneagles, we've got twin engines of growth in India. And given the attractiveness of the Indian private healthcare market, we intend to stay and grow in India.
But what do you think about this long journey of litigations, which is still not over at this point in time? Was there a time where IHH rethought its decision of acquiring Fortis?
Well, to be very honest, I think there were times when we were wondering what we got into, right? But over the years, most of the matters have progressed and resolved, one by one. There were several matters going on at the same time, right? So most of them have been resolved, right? And I think we feel, right? I don't want to judge what's going to happen, but we feel that we are at the tail end of this matter, all right? And we really will have a chance to go ahead, all right? Both with Fortis and with Gleneagles, all right, and increase our presence in India.
So when do you expect to hear back on the open offer?
No, can't predict that for the moment.
Probably by the end of this year
Hopefully
or next year?
6 months to a year, hopefully.
Well, from one exclusive to the next, we learned from sources that Alchem Labs is evaluating a new acquisition. Rachna is here with the details. Rachna, is the firm eyeing Novartis India?
Sources have told CNBC-TV18 that Alchem, which is the 5th largest pharmaceuticals company in India, is in talks to acquire Novartis India, which is the India arm of Swiss pharmaceuticals company, the Novartis AG. This deal is expected to be around 2,000 crore rupees. Now, it was in February earlier this year that Novartis AG had told CNBC-TV18 and clarified the intention to sell the India arm, where they own about 70.6%. And now joining the race to buy the India arm is Alchem Labs. Along with Alchem Labs, the companies that are in this race to acquire Novartis India are Dr. Reddy's and Zydus. Now, what we've also understood that as of the first quarter, Alchem Labs has about 3,500 crore rupees as cash reserves on their books, and this deal is expected to be around 2,000 crore rupees. So it would be interesting to watch out for how this acquisition unfolds. The first round of submitting the non-binding bids has already happened, and now the second round, which is the advanced stage of talks, is going on.
All right, Rachna, many thanks for joining us. A deal in the making. Up next on India Business Hour, Amazon's Chief Technology Officer says the company will not be baited into entering the race over generative AI. That exclusive coming up. And you can catch all of CNBC TV18's news and updates on Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram and JioCinema. The Supreme Court has granted bail to former Tamil Nadu Minister and DMK leader Senthil Balaji in an alleged money laundering case. Balaji spent nearly 15 months in jail without the initiation of a trial. Ashmit is standing by with the details. Ashmit, take us through the Apex Court's judgment in this matter.
Well, the Supreme Court judgment granting bail to Senthil Balaji, the former minister of the Tamil Nadu government, has raised an interesting question of the possibility of compensation being sought by an accused who's wrongly incarcerated for an unreasonably long time. Mind you, this is the order by which the Apex Court has granted bail to Senthil Balaji. But in doing so, it has raised multiple questions. It calls this a peculiar situation, saying that constitutional courts, that's high courts and the Supreme Court, will have to square with the peculiar situation where tomorrow there may be a situation where a person who's incarcerated without trial for an unreasonably long period tomorrow then raises compensation claims against the exchequer. How will the courts deal with that? That is, quote unquote, the peculiar situation that this judgment says courts will need to square with. Not just that, this judgment goes on to reiterate the long-held principle that bail is the norm and that jail is the exception. Also going on to say that under PMLA, although there is a very high threshold for grant of bail, it cannot exist in isolation. It needs to exist with a trial as well. That this high threshold for bail cannot be allowed to become a tool in the hands of the Enforcement Directorate to jail a person for an indefinite period of time without even a trial, saying that this would be a tragedy and will adversely affect the rights of the accused.
Ashmit, many thanks. In fact, the Mumbai court has granted bail to Shiv Sena UBT MP Sanjay Raut just hours after he was convicted in a defamation case. It also suspended his 15-day jail sentence for a month, allowing him to file an appeal in a higher court. The defamation case was filed by Medha Somaya, the wife of former BJP MP Kirit Somaya. She alleged that Raut accused the husband and wife of being involved in a 100 crore rupee toilet scam. Amazon's Chief Technology Officer Werner Vogel says the company will not be baited into entering the race over generative AI. Speaking with Ashmit, Vogel called large language models like ChatGPT inefficient and argued for more targeting AI spending. He also supports encrypting content online without providing backdoors to governments. He said, and I quote, "Dance like no one is watching and encrypt like everyone is," end of quote. Here's Amazon's global CTO.
We've been a long-time player in the AI world, but we don't play in the same world as some of these other large companies that you've heard from, because we're a business-to-business company. Yeah? We build technologies such that our customers can build these chatbots or these AI interfaces, or use AI for their systems. And as such, we play a very different role in it. We don't play this role open outside in the media with this one model over, that one model over, that one model. We are really concerned much more about security, about safety, about putting guardrails in place such that these models don't generate data that you cannot rely on. I believe backdoors will render encryption unusable or ineffective. Let's put it like that. If one group has access to a backdoor, then others will gain access to that as well. We know that from the past. But I do not think there's anything wrong with asking customers for their keys as the government. Yeah, after all, we have strict legal guidelines in place. It is like, what was it? Dance like nobody is watching, encrypt as if everyone is.
Well, that's the global CTO of Amazon. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned. The news will continue right here on CNBC-TV18.